Okay, we're up to today's Daf is Kuf Mem Gimel, and we're at the top of Kuf Mem Gimel Amid Aleph. Let's go over Gemara for a second. We got into the sugya where a man had gone ahead. He said that he's giving and he tells his woman, any child that will be born for you in the future would be what they'll inherit. Now, obviously, they don't because they're not in this world. They're not there at all. You can't be giving matano. You should someone who's not there. An older son was there and said, what about me? So he goes, you'll inherit with your younger brothers. So the shaila was, does he get an extra chelik or not? In other words, since his younger brothers are not inheriting now because they're not in existence, meaning they're not even in the Havamina state, right? He doesn't get an extra portion because the Kenyan's not. Or do we say no? Do we say he will get an extra chelik? That was the Gemara. And we had a machloikis. we had a machloikis between Rav Oven and Rabbi Yomi on one side saying yes, and Rav Avo on the other side saying no. We had Rav Avo explaining to Rav Oven why no, and Rav Oven then explained to Rav Yomi why no, which was, if you say at v'chamar, that you'll inherit like a chamar, of course, just like the chamar doesn't inherit, you don't inherit. So we're up to that. The itmar, 3 lines from the top. The itmar, kini kechamar. You could be kind of the chamar like kind. You say at v'chamar, you and the chamar should be kind of. If Nachman Amar Kana Mechza, you would get half. If Hamnuna Amar Lo Yamar Klum, you get nothing. If Sheshus Amar Kana Kol, you get everything. So now the Gemara will leave our shaila about whether the kinyan of this brother and other brothers weren't in the world, and we're going to focus on at v'chamar. So if a person we have machlokes, the 3 are machlokes, from one end of the spectrum to the next. You get nothing, you get everything, or you get half. So if Nachman said half, if Hamnuna said you get nothing, and if Shesha said you get everything. So first Rav Shesha is going to explain himself. Okay, a little background over here. When a person gives truma, you're supposed to give min b'mino. You're supposed to give one min on one min, wheat on wheat, grapes on grapes. You're not supposed to go ahead and switch around. Okay. In addition, there's a din you should not give me hara ala yafa. So in other words, if you have a very positive crop, do not give something that's not so good. That would be giving me hara ala yafa. So the story over here is that we're dealing with some type of melon. That part of the melon is bitter, and the other part of the melon is sweet. And you want to give 1/50th. You want to give 1/50th. So the Gemara says that you should go ahead, take the melon, and you have a problem. Because since part of this melon is mar, it's bitter, and you're going to be taking it off on parts that are sweet, maybe the ratio of sweet to sweet isn't enough. And you'll be going ahead and being marfish truma of bitter on sweet, which would be tantamount to taking what? Yafa, raw ala yafa. The raw being the bitter and the yafa being the sweet. So it says, what's the eitzah? You go ahead, and you add a little bit to what you're being mafish. So you add a little bit of sweet to what you're being mafish to offset the ratio to get more sweet to ensure that you're getting 1/50th of what? Of yafa al yafa, of sweet on sweet. That's what it says. So now we can view this what as sweet as at v'chamar, the sweet being you and the mar being the chamar. So let's go to I'm doing all this before we do the Gemara. This is the first. I'm doing the Rashbam before we do the Gemara. So the Rashbam is at v'chamarhu. It's about a little bit above the halfway point down the page. At v'chamarhu she'amar kisha zeh, this melon ye shuma al elu. The kim in the yeshba mar umasaik. Since in the melon you have sweet and bitter. Kiheki de mar lo chalba truma. Just like on the mar part of the melon that you're separating, the truma doesn't work. V'lemivatel shem tevel min hamem tes. And it doesn't go ahead and take off from the tevel of the percentage. But therefore the masuk shouldn't work. In other words, guys, here's the tzushtel. Only the Gemara could do this. At v'chamar, you're viable, the chamar is not. Masuk umar, right? You're viable. The mar is not viable, and the masuk is viable. and yet we're saying that, and yet we're saying that it works. So what do you see? At v'chamor, masuk and mar does work. That's Rav Shesh's raya. Continues the Rashbam. Hachanami hamasuk lo yichol shem truma elamayas l'chol meimar hamasuk kana hakol. Yeah, the masuk is kind of everything. In other words, the mar is doing nothing. It's the masuk that's doing everything. What's the raya, fellas? You had to add on more masuk because the ra doesn't work, right? Upater mitevel es hamemtes. Ule'el nami at v'chamor af agav dechamor loikana hu kana hakol. He gets everything. That's the sushtel kehechi dahacha the mar loikana umasuk kana hakol. So what's the sushtel? Very nice. By truma, the only part of the melon that you're separating that is effective is the masuk part. The mar part's doing nothing. So too by at v'chamor, right? And nonetheless, we're taking truma off everything. So too at v'chamor, even though the chamor part does nothing, the at part does everything. Therefore, you kaina hakol. That's the tzushtel Rav Nun is saying. Rav Sheish is saying why it works. So now let's see it inside. Maybe it goes geschmiert. There's only bitter part of the melons, the inside of it. The fikach keshu tayrim, when he goes ahead and takes off truma 1 melon on 50 melons, go ahead and add on to what? Add on al chitzon sheba. Go ahead and add on to the outside, which is the sweet part. Why would you do that? To ensure the ratio would be work out. The tayrim. Amai, Benji, Kuf Mem Gimel Amid Aleph, about 8 lines down, 10 lines down. Amai, At V'chamarhu, isn't, guys, again, the mar is doing nothing, the musuk's doing everything, and it's considered that what? You took care of all of it. Hu hadin, by At V'chamar, let's consider that what? That you're doing everything, the chamar is doing nothing, and therefore, yet it's effective. That's just tushtel. Says Shani Hasam Dimaraisa Truma Ma'ayasahi. With the Raisa, it's what? It's good Truma. In other words, if you take off Truma Meha Hara Alayafa, it does work. However, and that's why it does work. Mashenkein At V'chamor not. The Amar Raviloi, Minayin L'Toyrim Min Hara Alayafa, Shetruma Say Truma, Shenemar, Leisisa of Chet. You shouldn't carry with you a Chet. Ba'arimchem Eskel Boy, when you go ahead and separate the Chel Boy Mimenu. The main kodesh, and if it's not kodesh, it wouldn't work. Okay, outside. Look outside. Let's do it outside. It's not an easy Gemara, and look covered my chaverim who are late. We got this sugya to follow. We said at v'chamar. In other words, how do we get into this? If a person goes ahead, gives a kinyan, a matana to kids who are not a havamina in the world, and an older son, we said that we had a machlokes whether it works or not, right? So we said that it doesn't work. That's what Rabbi Vo said. It doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Because if you go ahead and if you go and say you should be kind of like the chamar, it doesn't work. So then you should be kind of like the kids who are not a havamina, it doesn't work. Now the Gemara goes into at v'chamar. We have a 3-year machlokes of at v'chamar, not at kechamar, at v'chamar. We have Rav Hamnun is saying kind of anything. We have Rav Sheshes says you kind of everything, and if the person says at v'chamar, and if Nachman says you get a half. Rav Sheshes, the Gemara now is coming to go ahead and explain Rav Sheshes. How could Rav Sheshes say you get the whole thing? So he does the following: if you're taking off truma from a melon, now it seems these melons, there was a bitter part and there was a sweet part. You can't take off from the sweet you can't take off from the bitter on the sweet, because you'll be going ahead, be toirim min hara ala yafa. Raw being the bitter, yafa being the sweet. You can't do it. So when you have the proportion of 1 melon to 49, you have a problem. Maybe you're going to end up, the mar part of the melon that you have is going to be taking off truma from the proportional of the 49 melons. So what do? You go ahead and you add more sweet. Like this, you're ensuring that you'll be able to take it off. Where the Gemara makes a tzushtel between melons and Rav Yafa and At v'chamar. When you're taking off truma, the mar part is doing nothing. The masuk part is doing everything, and you koina kol because you took truma off everything. So to at the chamor part's doing nothing, the at part's doing everything. Therefore, you koina kol. That's the tushtel. The Gemara answer is not a good tushtel because by at the chamor doesn't work at all. Your assumption was that the masuk doesn't work at all. That's not true. Midaraisa, it does work. Since midaraisa does work, then midrabon, we're not going to stop it from saying it doesn't work. But it can't say at v'chamor doesn't work. The reason why it works over here is because midaraisa, it really does work. Okay, that's what we just saw. Amalei Rav Mordechai Rav Ashi, Masiv Rav Avya Tiyufta. Mosif Rav Avya Tiyufta. Rav Avya asked the Tiyufta. Again, on the idea of At v'chamar. Maisa b'chamesh noshim. There was an incident that happened with 5 women, ubehem shtei achayos, and among the 5 women were 2 sisters. V'liket echad kilkola shel teinim. One of the 5 went ahead and was malake, gathered in a basket of figs. V'sholchu lehem, u'shalehen hoyse, belonged to them. V'shal shvias hoysa, and it was shvias. It was shvias. So v'amar harei kulchem mekudeshes li bilkakala zois. He says to them, all of you are what? Are mekudeshes to me with this kilkala. Okay, guys marrying 5 women, I don't know. We won't get into that. Now, there's sugis over here about Shemitah, about Shalahem. We're not getting to that either. The 2 women are sisters, the Kedushin doesn't work. The 2 women that are sisters, the Kedushin doesn't work, correct? Because it's guys, this is the sugya. This is a Kedushin. You need Kedushin Shem Mesur and Labia. This is one of the Al Kagams. This is the Kuf. By Abaya Rav and Machloikis, this is Kedushin. In order for Kedushin to be effective, it has to be one that one is able to consummate the marriage. Over here, since he can't marry 2 sisters, therefore this Kedushin doesn't work because you can't consummate the marriage, and the halacha is like a baya there. So this is like at v'chamar, fellas. The 3 other women are the at, the 2 sisters are the chamar, where it doesn't work. So therefore, should you acquire the other woman or not? Hari kulchem mekudeshes li bilkakol zois. The kiblu achas mehen al yedei kulon. Okay. Amar chachamim ein achayas mekudeshes. The word girls are not mekudeshes. Achayas hu de'ein mekudeshes. It's the 2 girls who are sisters are not hanachriyos, but the 3 other ones that are not related at all mekudeshes. The amai at v'chamorhi. So in other words, we could view this as a raya to Rav Sheshes or to Rav Nachman that half work, or we can view it as a kasha on Rav Hamnuna. The mashmois of the Gemara is a kasha on Rav Hamnuna because Rav Hamnuna says it doesn't work at all. Correct? Rav Hamnuna says at v'chamor doesn't work at all, but over here obviously it is working. So look, the lashon of the Gemara is v'ma'ai. Why should it work? At v'chamor hu. And you, Rav Hamnuna, says it doesn't work, but here we see it does work. So let's learn it as a kasha on Rav Hamnuna. Amalei, so Rav Ashi said to Rav Mordechai, who said this to him, and you're telling me this kasha from Rav Avya, says Rav Ashi, it's funny. Hainu dechazoi Rav Huna bar Avya. I saw Rav Avya's son Huna in a dream, Bechelma, the Moise Rav Avya Tiyufta, that he asked this question. And lav mi ukimna the ama haruyi mikem labia tiskadishli. It's not at v'chamar. He just said it's at. In other words, there's no chamar. What's the chamar? The chamar is if you said the lashon of kedushin to all 5. If you said the lashon of kedushin to all 5, the 2 girls are the chamar part, and the other 3 are the at part. But if he said those that are roy for me to mekudeshes, there's no chamar part because they're out of the way right away. All you did say at. You 3 are mekudeshes to me, but the other one's not. The male, it's not a kashan of Hamdun at all. There's no chamar, guys. The chamar is that the kinyan doesn't work. He never wanted a kinyan that works. He never had in mind those sisters because he said the ones who are roy, meaning the ones that I can consummate the marriage with, those are mekudeshes to me. Guy said what to his wife? Okay, but a guy went ahead and he said the following to his wife. Now we get into another sugya. The guy went ahead and he said to his wife, Nichsai yiulech ulabanayich. My nechasim should be to you and my sons. In other words, his sons will get it be Yerusha. A wife does not inherit a husband. And so the following, but he's saying that what you get it. Now here's the question, fellas. How much does she get? Fellas, how much does she get? He has 3 sons. Does she get a 4th chelik, a quarter? Or no, she gets half. Because what did he say? You and my sons. So the shaila is, do you get like the sons a piece of the action? Or since he delineated her separately, she gets half. That's the Gemara shaila, okay? It's a new sugya, not a chamar, it's a new sugya. What do you get? That's the Gemara shaila. Nichsei leich ulebenech. Rav Yosef, konsamechza. She gets half. She doesn't get a quarter in my scenario. You would get half. Rabbi Yosef, how do I know this, that you get half? The Tanya. It says regarding the lechem aponim. Rabbi Omer, it says v'hoisel la'aron u'lebonov. The lechem aponim that was on the shulchan, Aaron and his sons, mechzel Aaron and mechzel lebonov. It doesn't mean Aaron should get proportionally like his sons, but no, Aaron takes half and the remainder goes over to what? To the sons. Amalei Abaya, Bishle. So therefore, the same thing over here, says Rabbi Yosef. Just like you said, half should go, you and your sons, you'll get half like Aaron gets half, rather than get the same chelik as the sons. Bishlema, so Abaya does not like Rabbi Yosef's raya. Abaya does not like Rabbi Yosef's raya. Bishlema hasam Aaron bar chalukahu. Aaron is a kohen. So if Aaron's a kohen, why would it have to say v'hoisela Aaron lebonov? In other words, what's the Torah doing? Aaron was a kohen. By saying Aaron separately, it's giving more than the norm. In other words, you don't have to say Aaron Banov. If Aaron was supposed to get the same as his sons, just say the Bnei Kahanim. That's it. By saying Aaron Ubanov, what are you saying? Aaron's a little more than his sons. So there's a different limit over there. You get here. Therefore, the Torah went ahead and put Aaron separately in order that he gets half of the lechem upon him. Isha lav bas Yerushahi. Right? Anisha doesn't get it at all. Says Abaye, it's enough that what? Not that she gets half, it's enough that she should get what? A chelik like the other sons. In other words, fellas, by lechem upon him, without saying Aaron would get. He's a kohen. Why did the Torah say it? To tell me, special, he gets half. If this case, by woman, does she get the chayil? Does she get any? If the husband doesn't say anything, does she get? No, she gets a Tanai Ksuba. She'll be supported from the estate, but she's not getting a Yerusha, correct? She's being supported, right? That's Tanai Ksuba that she gets until she gets married, right? She's supported from the estate. Good. Without that, she doesn't get anything. So when the guy goes ahead and says you get, says Abaya, we're not going to jump from nothing to a half. Let her, it's enough that she gets, just like the sons, that she wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So you get a piece of the action. That's what Abaya Tainus Reb Yosef. Says the Gemara, Ini is really so that you don't get half. But Uvda Have Bernardoi, there was the Maisa Bernardoi where a guy gave the same lashon that my nechasim are to you and to sons. For Agbe Shmuel Palga, and Shmuel was the Dayan and Ardoi. He went ahead and he collected half for the women, like Rabbi Yosef's psak. But Tferia, there was a Maisa in Tferia. For Agbe Rabbi Yochanan, the great Rabbi Yochanan, also Palgos. Mashma, Rabbi Yosef was mechavan to some very heavy hitters. Right, Rabbi Yochanan and Eretz Yisrael, Shmuel and Bavel. This is the cleanup. This is the cleanup guys. This is the Greg Luzinski of kidding. Maybe the Ruth and Garrett would be a little more appropriate. Anyway, so this is Mike Schmidt. These are the heavy hitters. These are the heavy hitters. So l'chayra, that in other words, they get half. So the buyer, your taina is not a taina. The Su, in addition, Kiyas Reb Yitzchak bar Yosef Amar, there was an incident. Ahud make Kalila, a tax. It seems a tax on the Jews, certain Jews, for paying for the crown of the king. The Shodei de Bei Malka, that the Malka put a abuli on the Ashirim, the Aisturugi, and on the ministers, on the Sarim. Amar Rabbi, yeah, what's the word? Amar Rabbi says Rabbi, Nesivu abule palga, vistarule palga. Now, really, they put him on the Ashirim, but they came to help, says the Mat. So Nesuve avule palga should give half, vistaruge palga give half of the tax. Says the Mat. So l'chayra, you see, you give half. So too over here, you give half. Says, in other words, what's the raya over there? The raya from there is that really was on the Ashirim, and the Istaruge were out of the parsha. But nonetheless, when they came to help, they got half and half. So l'chayra, we have a raya half and half. Says, you have no raya from there. When they wrote it only on the rich people. Right? And they came to help. The other malka that have become Messiah. Right? In other words, they came to help. They said, "Oh, they're coming to help." Once that's the case, you can go ahead and pay for half. Okay. Remember the hani palga. Each one pays for half. Okay. So you have no raya from the istabuli istaruge. But again, what's the Gemara? The Gemara is a very famous psak of mechza, when a man goes ahead and gives a yerusha to his wife when she's not entitled to it, and sons, she's not going to get like a yerusha to be divided among the estate. She will get half as a present, l'chayra, and they get the other half. And we have Shmuel agreeing to it, Rabbi Yochanan agreeing to it, and the raya from Istanbul is not Mishkan raya. Masr Rabbi Zera, Hoina, Harelai. Now, the lacha is that a person can bring a carbon mincha. The largest amount of that a klisharis can hold is a 60 isarim. 60 isarim. Why? Because you need to be able to go ahead and mix it. And you had oil in there. You don't have to mix it, but it has to be royal lakach. So it's 60. That's the amount for a mincha gedayla. The largest amount is what is 60. So with that in mind, a person says, I'm going to bring 100. I'm going to bring 100. Now, if I ask you, how do you divide up the kli? You'd say you divide it up 50-50, right? You divide up 50-50, right? Lehevi b'shnei kalim, and he says, I'm going to bring it in 2 kalim. Maybe shishim b'kli echad, b'abayim b'kli echad. He brings 60 in one and 40 in the other. You see where we're going. This is, in other words, when a person gives a matana, not necessarily is it 50-50. It's 60-40. Amid beis. V'mhevi chamishim b'kli echad, v'chamishim b'kli echad, and he brings 50-50, yatsa. Imhevi in, if he brings 50-50, yes, l'chatchil eloi. Here's the Gemara's kasha. Hisal kedaitach. Kol ki haygavna, palgu palgahu. If you can tell me all these cases where a person says to 2, so again, with 2 selling guys, 2 kalim of 2, I'm bringing a mincha in 2 kalim, to 2 gifts, a gift to the wife and a gift to the what? The sons. And if you're going to tell me palgu palga, why is it only bidi evid 50-50? It should be lechatchila 50-50. You're saying 60-40, right? You're saying 60-40. Why? Because you broke it up into half. So you're telling me anytime things are broken up to half, it's not exact. Well, it should be exact. So Memela, if you're telling me, Rabbi Yosef, that when you give a present to your wife and your kids, she's getting half, why when you bring a present to Hashem isn't 50-50? Why is it 60-40? That's the kasha. And for the Gemara, I'll tell you. It says the Gemara, Hachi Hashta. You can't, what are you talking about? When this guy said 100, fellas, what did he mean? He wanted to bring what? A big carbon. If he didn't say 100, if he would have said, I want to bring a big carbon, you know what it would have been? 60. If again, had he not mentioned Meya, it would be 60. So that's his kavana. So what do? We bring 60 and add on 40. Right. The Yoda, he knows he knows it's not possible to bring. He knows it's not possible to bring in one kli. So therefore, now, My sinon, whatever the amount he can bring to get close to the big amount, you bring. So in other words, you want to go ahead and question. You want to question Rabbi Yosef from here. Rabbi Yosef says 50-50. We see over here, it's not 50-50. We see it's 60-40. Fanta Gemara, no, what are you talking about? You can't sushtel the two. Really, he wants to bring the biggest carbon he possibly can bring. When he said 100, the biggest carbon he can bring is 60. You know why he said 2 kalim? Because he knows that you can't bring what? You can't bring more than 60. So you're not going to go ahead and minimize it 50-50. You're going to maximize it. What's the maximum? 60. Second cleat, 40. Mashenkein, by giving a gift, which you're not subject to his kavana of carbon gadol, then maybe it's going to be 50-50. So now we come to a conclusion. The Hilchas Kavase Rabbi Yosef. Now, with Machloikas Rabbi Yosef and Rabbi fellas, we always pass him like Rabbi. Here's 3 cases in Baba Basra that we pass him like Rabbi Yosef. The Hilchas Kavase Rabbi Yosef Bisadeh. We had that in Daf Yomi regarding Yerusha and the Bar Mitzvah. The Yoirish, you're going to be Yoirish Bar Mitzvah. He has an existing field and he inherits. So we're going to inherit a field. We're going to inherit a field that's next to this field to go a bigger field. Inyan, right? Inyan, I don't remember exactly what Inyan was. Yeah, I do remember. I was reminded by the Rashbam. A person, the Isaac, as long as you Isaac buys the Inyan, you can have Chazara. We had a Kenyan Suda, a person made a Kenyan Suda. Can you change your mind? We said, as long as you Isaac buys the Inyan, you can change your mind. That was Rabbi Yosef's thing. Good. And this case, Mechza. So these are the 3 places. So Shiloh, whether these 3 places in Shas or 3 places in Baba Basra that he passed like Keneged Rabbah. But these 3 places, Sada by Stay Mitzvah, Inyan by changing your mind, by Kenyan Chalip, and as long as you Isaac buys in, you can change your mind. And the case over here of Mechza, that if you give a gift, if a person goes ahead and tells his wife, Leich ulebeneich, they each get half. Very good. Ahudashah de piska de shivoy lebese. Guy went ahead and he sent some cloth of clothing to his house. And he didn't say how to divide it up. Amar Reb Ami says, Haruyi and Labanim, the ones that are appropriate for males, Labanim go for males. Ru'iyim Labanois, the one appropriate for girls, daughters, go to daughters. V'lei Amaron, we don't say that it's appropriate for daughters, Ella de Lesle Kalasa, if there's no daughter-in-laws. Aval Isle Kalasa, the Kalase Shadar. If he has daughter-in-laws, the Rishonim say to satisfy his son. Why would a daughter-in-law come before a son? Why would a daughter-in-law come before a daughter? Because to satisfy the son who's married to the daughter-in-law. They would get first. However, if the daughters weren't married yet, like Shavik Binase, then the daughters would get first, not the daughter-in-laws, because the person will not go ahead and show favoritism over an unmarried a daughter-in-law to an unmarried daughter. Ahuda Amalahu, a person said to people that were around him when he was dying, Nechasai libnei. The Chasim go to literally my sons. And the Chasim should go to my sons. Habile bara ubarta. What did he have? He had a son and he had a daughter. He had a son and he had a daughter. Now, so it's not appropriate saying my sons, but he had a son and a daughter. So here's the suffix. Mikari inish libra benai. Does a person call what? His sons. And his kavana is to what? To give it to his son. Ulesaluke lebarte meisha kasi. He wanted to, and his daughter doesn't even get a 10th. Dilma, or perhaps like Kari Inish Libra Benai, a person does not call his sons. And his lashon is to go ahead by calling sons that the daughter should get as well. So here's a shaila. You have the lashon of Benai, sons, but he doesn't have sons. He has a son and a daughter. So does he mean we call a son sons and the daughter's out? Or do we say, no, we call a person sons means he wanted to include his daughter as well, since he used lashon plural. So the Gemara constantly places the shaila. Abaya, Amar Abaya, Toshma, it says, Ubenei Don Chushim. The son of Don was Chushim. Now, Chushim was one guy. As a matter of fact, Dun only had one son. As a matter of fact, Dun had only one son. And Kenny is pointing out that that one son became huge, right? Yeah. It was there's a lot of things said about Chushim. Just to digress for a second. He was deaf. Chushim was deaf. And there's a medrash. Actually, it's a Gemara in Saita. The Gemara says that when they were burying Yaakov Avinu, Esav showed up, and he started to go ahead and had a vikuach, a fight. He wanted a taina that not to bury who had a right to bury Yaakov there, that he had first dibs over Yaakov, and they're dilly-dallying around, fighting back and forth. Hushim, who was deaf, looked at this and said, "My Heilige Zayda is here, lying here, not buried." And he went, and it says he knocked off his head, and that's how his head ended up in the Marsa Machpelah. That's one thing they say. There's one thing they say. I think Heshi would tell you there's a famous Reb Chaim Shmulevitz on that, right? I know my guy. Reb Chaim Shmulevitz says that, you see, sometimes the more you get in a situation, the more you talk about it, the more accustomed you get to it. It becomes like normal. Like if something's nuts, you got to act right away. Like Hushim couldn't hear; he was deaf, so all he saw was the bizayin. But they began talking already with Esav. Again, Dimas HaMargela, it gets very, very common. So that's one thing about Hushim. In addition, and this to me is the Chafetz Chaim brings it down. If you look at the sons, the one shevet that had the most sons, fellas, was Binyamin. Binyamin had 10 sons. 10 sons. The one shevet that had the least was Dan, 1. When you go ahead and make the cheshbon in the census, Dan had the second largest, like 62,000, something like that. And Binyamin was not. Binyamin was decimated years later. So you see that son, you never know. You never know what could happen. You never know from one child what could happen. So that's a little bit about Dan. Okay, anyway, it says, what's Araya? Amar Abaya, Toshma, Ubnei Dan Chushim. And the son of Dan was Chushim. It says sons, Bnei is sons. So the Chayr, what do you see, Araya? That one singular son is called son. So Amar Lei Rava, Dilma Keditana Bechizkiya, Shahayim Merubim Kechushim Shel Kana. Maybe like the Tana Bechizkiya, because as we just spoke out, maybe because he would go ahead and branch out to be many. So therefore you have no Raya. Ella Amar Rava, Ubnei Palui Eliyav. The son of Palu, sons of Palu was Eliyav, 1. Rabbi Yosef Amar, Ubnei Esan Azariah. And the son of Esan was Azariah. So the being a Raya that he didn't want to give to his daughter, he called sons, and therefore, so I heard Rabbi Bornstein spoke out very nice. He said, Bnei Palu is a lashon in Bamidbar. It's a lashon in Bamidbar. And Bnei Esan is a lashon in Divrei Hayamim. Wouldn't it be better to go ahead and quote from the Torah proper than to go to the Ksuvim? Wouldn't it be better to quote, again, what do you want to do? You want to prove that Bnei means sons. So he said beautifully, they quotes the Netziv, guys. The Netziv. The Netziv says like this. What's the question over here? Is the question what the Torah says, or the question how when men says something, what do they mean? Right? When men say something, what do they mean? The Torah is the Torah. It's not telling you how people speak, it's the Torah. Ksuvim is really more prone to tell you how people speak. Therefore, Rav Ashi, therefore Rabbi Yosef felt it's better to bring a proof from Divrei Hayamim, because we want to prove that people call sons, and therefore it's more appropriate. Hahuda Amalahu, Nichse Libnai, my nechasim to go to my sons. Havele bro Barbara. He had a son and a grandson. So now the shayla is, does a person call his bnei ban marei kimbanim, and therefore he gets a piece of the action or not? So kari inish leba bara. Maybe in certain things, but in a gift, maybe not. He does call him a grandson, a son, and therefore he would get a piece of this matana. The son of Rashi, like kari inish leba. A person does not call his grandson his son. Tanya Kavasi the Ravashi that we do not call him a son. Hamudana mi banim. If a person says his sons should not have hana from him, mutam b'nei banim, his grandchildren can have hana. So why do you see that b'nei banim are not kebanim? You have a very good raya. I will stop over here.